start by taking a brief survey. Who here believes that there's endless abundance available to access on Earth? You can close your eyes and vote, so you don't have to be embarrassed.
What was the question?
Who here believes that there's endless abundance accessible on Earth?
Yeah.
I think this is a hard one because obviously Earth's a closed system, right? And it's dangerous to think we can take as much as we want from it. But this week I started reading a book called, I forgot what's called, Abundance, The Future's Better Than You Think. And this book, according to this, it's not the resources that we're using, it's the ideas that are providing those resources. And according to them, they believe the movers and the shakers all are believing that by the year 2035, we will have most of the world's issues taken care of, meaning lack of water, lack of food, lack of energy. So this seemed pretty crazy to me. But they say that the biggest issue with keeping this from happening is our perception, that our inability to believe it, because the human mind is linear, and progress is happening exponentially each year, and technologically wise. So I just want to give you a sampling of that progress and see if you guys can process it with your linear minds. It'll be quick. Beginning with water. Beginning with water, there's OPEC is an oil company, and they're doing an experiment called OPL. It's called One Planet Living, where they're actually creating a city in the desert to support 100,000 people. And it's going to be solar-based, and they're getting the water for it from the ocean using a desalination process. And it's not entirely perfected, but they're actually working on it. They've invented straws that you can put in a puddle, in a septic system, in a toilet, and drink out of it. It'll be okay. They've, in Africa, started using purifiers that can purify 250 gallons of water a day. 250 gallons of water a day using the energy of a blow dryer. So that's a lot of people. In terms of food, you've probably heard of vertical gardening, which is, I know, I hear it. You've heard of vertical gardening, which uses hydroponics. They've calculated that one 30-story tall building, say in New York, if they planted hydroponic vegetation on it, it could feed up to 50,000 people a year with living food, and it goes year-round. It takes as much room to plant. It would equivalent 30 acres of land space, this garden. In terms of energy, there's a man named Craig Venter. He created something kind of scary sounding. It's a self-replicating species parented by a computer. That's weird enough. But this species is algae, and it consumes the carbon dioxide out of the air. And 2 acres of this would be enough to power 26,000 cars a year, because they can harvest the oil from it. Solar energy is another thing that's changing. They say this book was written last year, but within 2 to 5 years, it's going to be as cheap as just regular electricity is for us. They've invented, so you might know about this, I don't know, but they've invented certain panels that would actually go in windows. You can see through it. It would be part of windows in houses instead of panels on roofs. So it could be in people's roofs or in people's houses. So what's making all this growth possible is a few things. One is the philanthropists. There's a new age of philanthropists, which are based on, they're like the captains of digital technology. And they're really different than the old philanthropists, because the old ones were usually directing their philanthropy locally. But these guys are tackling world issues like malaria and AIDS and water. And for instance, Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, 2 of the richest people on the planet, started something called Giving Pledge, and they are hoping or wanting every billionaire to dedicate or sign this and devote half of their riches to these planetary issues. So far, in the first year, they got 69 people. You've probably heard of, like, David Rockefeller, Mark Zuckerberg, Ted Turner. They all signed on. And then on the flip side, there's the people that are, I have to breathe. There's the people that are just like the average Joes, the backyard tinkers, do-it-yourself people who have been able to discover what like only governments could do before. Burt Rutten has made they've traveled into space, things that only like NASA could do before, and with the commercial possibility for space travel. And Chris Anderson used Legos to create drones, which they're using to supply third world nations with extra supplies. And this person who created these drones, they're selling for $300 a piece as opposed to the $350,000 a piece that the government uses when they create these. And some of these things are a little scary, but they're also really interesting. Like the garage biology high school students can use genetics to cure certain diseases, and university students created bugs that consume some of the BP oil spill. So, obviously, mind power, like the technology, is spreading. And this is, within the next year, 1.5 billion more people are going to be involved in the internet because of the African countries and the different third world nations that now have access to cell phones and laptops. They were calling it global telepathy. Back in the days of Lincoln, it took 17 days for his address to travel through telegraph wire from where he gave it to California. Now it's a second around the world. It took Obama's address to travel. It's exponential, meaning technology doubles itself every year and a half, meaning within a decade it's going to have the equivalent of the human mind. And within 13 years after that, the equivalent of the entire human species. Which is crazy, it's crazy to absorb, and it's really hard to absorb, but it's also, I think, a way we can look at it, and if everyone kind of gets on the boat of it to direct it in the way that's most ethical, I think that's a really important way to go with it, instead of just seeing what's negative out there. Okay.